Too many leaders hand things off and they think they've handed off ownership. They delegate a task and they assume that the work is done. But here's the truth. Delegation does not free you from responsibility. Matter of fact, it multiplies your influence when it's done well. If it fails, it's still your name on the line.
This is the Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher, the forum for leaders, champions, and dreamers.
Welcome back, everybody. Hey, I wanted to share on a subject that has come up recently. And I know that if you're listening to this show, you may have fallen into this trap, or at least at minimum, you're going to get this opportunity. There's no question about it. A few weeks back, I was talking with a mid-level leader in a very fast-paced, very high growth type of a company. And this leader was overwhelmed. Maybe you can relate. High growth, more to do than you have time. I mean, her calendar, it was a mess. Her email inbox, I can't even tell you how many unread emails were in there. It was a war zone in there. And her team, frustrated, very frustrated. When I asked what was happening, she says, Jeff, I got to tell you, I've been delegating like crazy. I've handed off almost everything, but things still aren't getting done. When people come right out and talk to me about delegation as if it's a badge, an award, I always get a little bit leery. When I have a leader and I'm trying to diagnose where are their efficiencies, where are their opportunities, and they tell me, especially when they tell me they have more to do than time and emails and all these things, and they say, and I've been delegating everything, all of my alarms go off because I can almost tell you what's coming next. I can almost tell you what's going on in this moment. And this is what I told her, and if you fall into this trap, this is what I would tell you as well. I told her that I believed that she delegated tasks, no question, but maybe she didn't delegate the understanding of the task. You know, there's two things in play here. There's actually pushing work onto somebody, and there's ensuring an understanding of it that's not only good for you, the leader, but more importantly, it's good for the person that's having the task delegated to them. And so we can't just celebrate the fact that we're delegating work to people, because the ultimate goal of delegation is not to free up work from the leader, although that is a benefit. The ultimate goal of leadership is to help somebody else develop, help them grow, give them an opportunity to take those training wheels off and see how they're going to ride down the lane, right? And that's the problem that I think that a lot of leaders face. Sometimes we think this delegation thing is a relief valve, when really it's a responsibility amplifier is what we're doing here. So we can't get the two things confused. Delegation is not a badge of productivity alone. It's an opportunity to help guide other people. There's a dangerous myth in leadership, I believe, that says, if I hand this task off, I'm off the hook. I'm off the hook because now it's not on my plate. It's kind of like the hot potato, right? Just throw it to somebody else and now it's not my problem. Well, that game ends in leadership. That's not leadership at all. That's abandoning responsibility. And that's a hard leadership truth here. True delegation, it never removes your responsibility, which is not the goal. It simply changes how that responsibility looks. Your hands may not be in the project, might not be in the work. Your fingerprints might not be on the actual work, but you should still heavily consider yourself responsible for the outcome. Too many leaders, they delegate out of exhaustion instead of strategy. This is a big opportunity. When you're feeling exhausted, this should be an indicator to you that I need to be very, very careful about how I delegate, because I might just be pushing work. This is a house of cards. And honestly, more times than not, it ends up costing you more time, because you're just running around fixing broken things. And this is when the leader, this is one of your cues that you may fall into this trap whenever you say, I just don't have time to get this done. And you literally look for the next person walking by to maybe push off a task that they're really not prepared to do. Then when it starts to fall apart, and it typically does, the leader is shocked that nobody, quote unquote, owned it. Who owned this? Well, at the end of the day, the leader owns it. We have that responsibility. That's not to say that we don't hold people accountable, but we have to equip and empower before we delegate. Here's some leadership truth. If you don't take time to transfer clarity, expectations, and accountability, then you didn't delegate. What you did was you just dumped work on somebody. There's a difference in how those things hit, and there is certainly a difference in the outcomes. You can assign authority, and you should. You can assign tasks, and you should, but you can never sign away leadership responsibility. That never happens. This is the difference between fault and responsibility, which can be miles apart. It could be somebody else's fault that they didn't, quote unquote, own it, but it's always going to be your responsibility, the outcome. At the end of the day, the outcomes, they have our leadership name all over them. If the team member misses the goal, the leader owns it, period, full stop. Think about every great leader that you know, whether it's in business, military, sports, family, whatever it might be. They take the hits when things go wrong, and they give away the credit when things go right. This is a hallmark of a great leader. That's called leadership maturity. That's what we all need to transpire to be. When you say, that's my responsibility, you're not taking blame. You're taking ownership. That's mine. This is my responsibility. I own it. It's my fault that we lost the game. I could have prepared the team better, whatever it might be. Now, meanwhile, the quarterback threw 6 interceptions. Okay, well, that's his fault. But at the end of the day, every good coach knows ultimately it's their responsibility to make sure that that team is ready to win and they have a great game plan and we have practiced well. And ownership is what earns the greatest leadership respect. The moment you start blaming your team, you've stopped leading your team. They're not being led by you anymore. You might be a dictator, but you're not leading them. When I work with leaders, I see what I would say 3 very common delegation breakdowns in high rotation. And the first one of those is a lack of clarity. This is when the leader assumes that people know what good looks like. Well, I'm here to report on the Champion Forum podcast. Maybe you're hearing it for the first time. They don't. They don't know what good is. And even if they do, let's assume that they don't. Let's always make the assumption that they don't. Because what the leaders sometimes say is, hey, take care of this. But they never define success. Delegation without definition, it's always going to lead to one thing, and that's confusion. So how do we fix this? Well, you got to slow down to speed up. In the military, we call this hurry up and wait. Define the win clearly. How do we do this? I'm talking about the what. I'm talking about the why. I'm talking about the when. This is going to bring some level of clarity. It might be clear to you, and most times for the leader, it is clear to you. But if it's not clear to them, then it's not clear. This is when you'll know this is an opportunity for you if you keep saying things like, if you keep hearing things from your employees like this or your team members. But boss, I thought you meant. Boss, I thought you meant. When you start hearing that verbiage, you have a clarity opportunity. The second thing that I see that is a common delegation blunder is a lack of checkpoints. These are the milestones that are very, very important. Many leaders, they either micromanage or they disappear. Rarely is there a healthy balance in the middle. They're insecure, so they micromanage every single thing. They're overwhelmed and exhausted, so they just shove work on people and ride off to the next thing. Delegation isn't set it and forget it. It's trust, verify. Trust, verify. Trust and verify is a healthy way to delegate, meaning I'm not what Ken Blanchard calls leading like a seagull. And leading like a seagull is you don't know where I'm at, but all of a sudden I'm going to swoop in, crap all over everything, and steal your lunch, right? We can't lead that way. We have to trust but verify. And we can't go the other way, which is set it and forget it. We can't hover like a seagull waiting to swoop in. But we do need to have checks in progress. What are we making the steps that we need to get the outcomes that we need? That's not distrust. That is stewardship. That is great leadership stewardship, because what you're doing here is you're monitoring along the way versus giving somebody a multi-day, multi-month task. They submit work and you're like, no, you got to start from square one. That's very deflating. And it's not a great way to learn either. Now, look, I'm here to learn from some healthy failure, no question about it. Sometimes you got to push the kid on the bike for the first time and let him crash. I'm here for it. But there's got to be some coaching along the way. We have to create milestones. That's how we fix this opportunity. That's when the leader is asking, what's the best way for us to stay aligned on this project, on this delegation, on this assignment? Accountability should feel like collaboration, not control. And then the third one that I want to address that might be an opportunity if you're listening today is lack of development. Most leaders hand off tasks to get relief, just to get a breath of air. They're drowning, right? But they're not doing it to give worth. And look, friend, I have been there. I have been there where I'm like, I'm about to bust at the seams. I don't know if I have another ounce of capacity in me. And I have fallen victim to this. But we can't just give tasks for relief of pain. We have to give tasks that present worth to other people, right? True delegation isn't about getting stuff off your desk, although that is a benefit, as I mentioned earlier. What it's really about, it's about building leaders who can carry their own load. That's what we're trying to do. This is this level 4 leader that John Maxwell often talks about, this leader of reproduction. If the person you delegate to isn't growing, neither do you. It's stagnant at best. At best, it's stagnant. We have to be a leader that reproduces. We do that through healthy delegation, not just giving tasks out. Here's the opportunity. See delegation as coaching, not as task delivery. After the assignment or the project, you're asking questions like, what did you learn from this? What would you do differently next time? How would you modify your approach next time? That's how delegation turns into development, is we're coaching along the way, we're letting them fail in a healthy way, and we're helping them get their legs back. President Harry Truman, there's a great story about him. As it said, I forget exactly the sign, but it was like the buck stops here. And he had it right in the Oval Office, right on his desk. The buck stops here. I mean, I think that, those 4 simple words are monumental leadership statement. The buck stops here. Now, if you could probably read into the buck stops here as this overpowering, authoritarian type leadership style, but that's not why he had the sign on his desk. That phrase became legendary because it summed up real leadership accountability. The buck stops here, meaning if it's good or if it's bad, it's all my responsibility. I have to own it. Truman understood that while decisions could be advised, tasks could be delegated. However, the final responsibility always came back to the Oval Office desk. The buck stops here. So this is a great reminder for all of us. You can pass the work down, no doubt about it. You should. But you can't pass the buck. The buck stops here. Great delegation has 3 hallmarks. Clarity. People know exactly what success looks like. Authority. The people that you are giving tasks to are empowered to make decisions without waiting on you, knowing that it might fail and we might have to regroup. And 3 is accountability. You stay connected enough to support and evaluate outcomes without overbearing people. It's a very dynamic balance, I get it. But clarity, authority, and accountability. That's what multiplies your leadership. When you transfer ownership, everything changes. Your capacity changes, productivity changes. You're not just giving tasks. You're taking ownership and you're empowering people. Here's a question that I think is worth asking yourself this week. Am I delegating to develop others or to distance myself? Because if you're just handing things off to get relief, you're creating dependency. That's never going to help you grow. But if you're delegating with clarity and accountability, what you're doing is you're reproducing, and you might even be creating future leaders. Remember, the goal of delegation isn't to do less. It's to lead more effectively. So here's the challenge as we wrap up the episode today. Before you hand off that next task, that next project, that next assignment, stop and ask yourself a couple questions. Have I defined what success looks like? Have I given them authority and accountability? Have I scheduled time to review and develop them and check in on their milestones? If you can't answer yes to all 3 of those questions, then you might want to hold off on delegating it just yet. Because delegation is not about removing yourself. It's about reproducing yourself. You can delegate tasks, but you cannot delegate responsibility. Appreciate you all listening in today. I hope this message served you well. If there's leaders in your life that maybe need to hear it, it would mean the world to us that you would spread this message. My heart is to serve leaders, to equip you, to make big leadership impact and transform the lives of the people around you. Until next week, keep leading with great impact and keep turning that pressure into potential.
The Champion Forum Podcast with Jeff Hancher. Lead, inspire, win.